workshop run by Damon Pourtahmaseb-Sasi on improving executive function. Damon has been a family therapist for 10 years and now works mostly with the rationality and EAG communities. He works on various mental health projects for the community, such as Off-Road. In addition, he writes rational fiction, articles on psychology and relationships, as well as teaching at rationality summer camps and fellowships. So this workshop will go over the basics of how to better understand the way that our executive function process works. I assume most of the people who are here know what that means, but I did not beforehand, so that'll be clarified, and some of the steps to improving it. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Damon Pourtahmaseb-Sasi.
Thank you. Oh wow, okay, cool. The main question, probably to go over that in case people are still curious, is what executive function even means, right? So on the screen right now are these kind of like 8 segments. This is one way to try to break executive function down into what component parts make up. When you usually hear someone talk about executive function, usually what you hear them talk about is executive dysfunction. So ADD or ADHD is like the most common diagnosis that people would talk about for executive dysfunction, because executive function is like the process of wanting to do something that you deliberately then take the steps to do. So you have an intent, you try to do the thing, and what's the process for you going from having the idea to do the thing to actually taking the action? And executive dysfunction is that something's going wrong in that process, right? So something in one of those 8 segments is going wrong for it to lead to executive dysfunction. And when we talk about executive dysfunction, we're talking about a symptom, not a diagnosis. Like I said, the diagnoses of things like ADD, ADHD. The symptoms that come from diagnoses like these are either inability to focus, inability to like control impulses, difficulty with planning. You have different diagnoses that affect different parts of executive function. And so the first thing that kind of feels important to talk about is like, what does it even mean to fail to act on a desire, right? If you want something, then kind of by definition, you should then do the thing, right? That seems pretty straightforward. But most people have experienced something like, I want to go to the gym, or I want to eat healthier, or I want to do my homework, or I want to work harder, or whatever kinds of different things they might want to do, and then just like have trouble doing it. So clearly wanting to do the thing and then doing the thing is not the same thing. There's some process that is between the wanting and the doing. Sometimes we do things without even wanting to do them. So there's obviously something else going on in that respect too. Habits are things that we do without even thinking about doing them, like whether we want to do them or not. Habits can be automatic. So executive function is specifically about that process between wanting to do a thing and then doing it. And controlling emotions is this thing that comes up a lot, because like we're talking about controlling your desires, controlling what you want, controlling what you should want or what you feel like you should want. And that's kind of hard to do. It's not really something that I think people should aim for. I don't think it's very doable in the first place. We can talk more about that later. So yeah, procedural executive function, which is another thing that I call this, is this like, let's take this process and kind of break it down so we can understand what parts go into the actual process from idea to action. Part of why this is valuable is because I think people will have a breakdown at different parts. So let's go to this one. Yeah. This is those 8 things in the first slide. In the order that I think more or less they are like going to be experienced. This may not be the same for everyone. And also I just might be wrong about the order in some of these. But this is the thing that seems like it's been true for the research that I've done so far and the work that I've done with it. So we're talking first about planning and prioritizing, right? This is after the notion, after the initial thought that you have to do the thing. Either you forget the thing altogether, which happens sometimes. People are like, oh, I should go buy some milk, and then they forget, right? And then so they never even have the chance to actually make some kind of plan or prioritize it. Or they make the plan and think, okay, I'll buy some milk tomorrow. Prioritization is linked with planning because you can't really plan to do something without planning not to do other things. It's like exclusion. To include something in your day or in your plans means to exclude other things, and you will kind of naturally try to prioritize what you want to do when you have to make this decision of when to do something. If you have trouble doing something, it's sometimes just because you don't prioritize it over other things, which is like hard for people to admit, because like they're like, oh, you know, I really want to do this thing. Turns out you also want to do other things more, which is totally fine. But like if someone's telling you that you should want to do something else, or you feel like you should want to do something else, then you might have a harder time coming to peace with that. We can talk about that more later too. So yeah, step one is basically planning and prioritizing. Step two is task initiation. This may seem like a kind of like basic or obvious thing to add, but it's like quite important to actually take the actual step itself to start doing the thing. And the reason this is in fact a separate step where something can go wrong, each of these is something can go wrong in each of these, which is why each of these is a step. So the reason why it's important for things to be initiated specifically is because some people actually notice themselves failing at the task initiation step. I've heard a story of someone who like something as simple as lying in bed with a phone charger, like within reach almost. The phone is like running out of batteries on their chest, and they're like watching something, and they know that they should get the charger. They know they're going to regret not getting the charger, and they just can't bring themselves to actually just reach out and get the charger. There's like some disconnect between the desire to get the charger and the actual action. And task initiation can be really like kind of almost what's the word? It's kind of like almost philosophical about like what it is exactly that's happening when you decide to do the task initiation. So we can go into that too. Emotional control is the next step where you're kind of deciding kind of moment to moment how you feel about the thing that you're doing. It's hard to keep doing something if you don't feel good doing it. It's hard to keep doing something if it's not interesting. It's hard to keep doing something if it's boring. It's hard to keep doing something if it's confusing or painful. Like I said before, controlling emotions is not really the right frame for this, I think, but that's the word that most people use when they talk about like this kind of thing. So we'll talk about more of that too. Self-monitoring is kind of an extension of emotional control, right? It's like your ability to actually notice moment to moment what you're feeling and why you're doing it. Impulse control extends from that. This is like the ability to, I don't know how many people have had the experience of your hand kind of just like automatically alt-tabbing to another thing while you're working on something, or just like automatically typing in RE enter, and then you're on Reddit suddenly and you didn't even realize you were supposed to be doing that. Like it's having the impulse and then like not going immediately into the action that you want to prevent doing or something is important too. Working memory, this is part of what ADD and ADHD have impair for people with executive dysfunction. This idea like how much can you hold in your mind at once before something else distracts you. Organization, this is like your ability to follow through on different steps of a process such that you don't get distracted in the more like planned out way instead of like moment to moment. And then flexible thinking is like your ability to think around the blocks that will come up normally when you do something. So I'm happy to talk about that too, but the kind of basic thing I want to take away from this is like, I'm not claiming that if you can just fix one of these things, everything else will go smooth sailing. Different things will come up as problems in different kinds of tasks. Some people will have trouble with task initiation for one kind of task, but for another kind of task, starting the thing is not the problem. It's impulse control during it or self-monitoring while doing it. For other people, like planning and prioritizing is easy, task initiation is easy. It's only when they get into the actual nitty-gritty of the work itself that the organization and flexible thinking starts to gum up the works or something. And so every different part of this can go differently for different people and also for different kinds of projects. Like people have different kinds of trouble with emotional work than they do administrative work or like doing taxes or something. Like different things will keep people from doing the thing they quote unquote want to do. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about some of what you actually want to do means. There's 4 different categories for this that I've kind of come to understand. When you want to do something, it means you actually want to do the thing itself, right? The actual process of doing the thing is what interests you. And this can be something like exercising, video games, even like work for your job or something. It doesn't matter what it is, but like the actual process of doing the thing is the thing you want to do. Want to have done something is very different from wanting to do it. Like I want to have the laundry done does not mean that you want to do the laundry, right? And like noticing the distinction between I want this thing to be done and I want to do it is really important for recognizing why you're having trouble doing something and not like beating yourself up over it. Want to be the type who does something is also different from wanting to have done it or even wanting to do it. So like I want to be the kind of person who gets his homework done every night before doing anything like fun. Or like I want to be the kind of person who shows up at work on time every day or something. This is not the same thing as wanting to actually do the things that lead to the thing happening. It's also not necessarily the same thing as wanting to have the thing be done, because usually the reason that you want something to be done but you can't do it is because there's a competing want or competing desire that is like getting in the way of it. And then want to be seen as the type who does the thing is also a different thing, right? Like you might not actually want to be that thing, but you feel like you should want to be that thing, or like people around you want you to be that thing, or you expect that virtuous, good people want to be that thing. Yeah, so each of these 4 things mean something different. And if you're ever struggling with like, why do I want to do something but I don't actually end up doing it, I think one of the best suggestions I have for you first is actually just to recognize which of these things is actually the thing that you care about. This is important in part because I've worked with a lot of students who were having trouble with school, particularly in high school students and sometimes in undergrad or graduate school students even, where like the thing they recognize is like, I don't want to do this work because it's just bullshit. It's like busy work. It doesn't matter to my interests. It doesn't matter to like things that I care about. It doesn't matter to my major even maybe. And when they get told by the teacher something like, yeah, I know it's kind of dumb and bullshit busy work, or by their parent or something. Like, hey, it's kind of dumb, busy, bullshit work, but it's just like important for you to do it because the administration wants you to do it, or like it's important for you to do it because that way you just get it out of the way and like you don't have to worry about it anymore or something. It's actually just like easier for many people to do it than it would be if like they're being told it's really important, but they don't feel like it's supposed to be. Or like they don't feel like shame about it as much. They don't feel like self-flagellation about like, you know, why can't I be the kind of person who wants to do busy work or something? Yeah, it's like important to recognize this distinction in part also for that, but also because like it helps the next steps understand better what you should be doing, quote unquote, should be doing to get the thing done. And sometimes if you know the difference between want to do versus want to have done, for example, it's like, oh yeah, I actually don't feel like it's important for me to do this. Maybe it's just better actually for me to ask someone else to do it for me and either pay them or like exchange favors or whatever the thing is that might be done. Yeah, so that's kind of with the part of the planning and prioritizing part and like distinguishing your wants. The actual costs and benefits are really, really important for task initiation and emotion control. So for people who don't know predictive processing, it's this idea that like this model of thinking that our ability to basically make sense of the world comes from both our ability to, from the ground up, make observations, and then from the top down, have predictions about the world. And like oftentimes when we have some kind of dysfunction, it's because there's a disagreement between these two things. So like being confused, being surprised, feeling anxiety, feeling depression even. Like all these different things can be mapped as the result of like having different expectations and models versus different observations. It turns out task initiation sometimes just comes down to like whether or not you predict the thing will go well. And like there's a lot of experiences people have sometimes of like, I know that I'm supposed to go to this party tonight, I don't really want to go, but like I know that also like once I go I'll probably be glad that I went, but I just don't want to go, like I don't want to get ready and go. And like that task initiation dysfunction, for lack of a better word, usually just comes because there is not the ability to like properly internalize on an emotional level what it will mean to do this thing. There's something about the experience of doing it that's like disconnected from their pre-doing stage. And if you take people in this circumstance and actually like walk them through the process of just like imagining the positives and like the experiences of the positives, surprisingly often like this actually helps with task initiation. Or on the contrary side, it can make it harder because they're like, oh no, this will actually suck. This will actually just make it like it will be terribly unpleasant doing this thing. That's why I don't want to do it. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, why would you want to do this thing if it's going to be unpleasant? Well, because I have to do this thing. Okay, why do you have to do the thing? Because I need to make money. Okay, why do you need to make money in this particular way? It opens up a whole new different line of questioning that's really valuable for people to like actually go through sometimes instead of just taking for granted that this is the thing they have to do or should do. And of course, this means that you then probably have to do some soul searching sometimes about like whether you actually need to do the thing or not. And like this may not be the thing that people want to hear when they're like trying to ask for tips on how to actually do the things that they feel like they should do. Like maybe the actual answer is that you shouldn't do the thing. But we can talk more about that later too. So prioritizing smaller steps, this is actions and feelings. This is the important part of like, you get probably told a lot this idea of like you break tasks down into smaller steps because breaking tasks down to smaller steps make it easier to do each individual thing. It feels less overwhelming. This is not just for like object level tasks. This is for feelings too. Your expectation of how you feel at each step is important. And noticing that you're going to be able to actually like do one step and feel pretty good about it, but not the other step means that there's something about the other step that it's worth confronting. So one of the major takeaways from my research, like what does it mean when you notice that you found like a part of a task that you don't want to do, is one of two things usually comes up in most of the cases. Either one, you don't know what to do, or two, you know what to do, but it's going to be unpleasant to do it. This is really valuable for people to recognize that it's one of these two steps, because there's a really obvious answer to if you don't know what to do next, which is like find out what to do. It's like ask for help, look it up, like figure out what you've done or people have done in similar circumstances. It's like you can do other things that help. This is like the break it down step. Like you do other things that help build up to the thing that's difficult to do. And when you notice that like most of the time, half the time, a third of the time is different for different people, the feeling of, I don't want to do this thing, or like my attention keeps shifting away from doing this thing, it's like, why does my attention keep shifting away from doing this thing? It's because I don't know what to do next. Is really, really valuable for people who are trying to go through the executive function process. They like figure out what's going wrong in each step. So that's a pretty big valuable thing. And the other one is, of course, you do know what to do next, but you know it's going to be unpleasant. Like you know exactly how to break up with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, but you just don't want to do it because it's going to be painful. It's like, yep, that sucks. Sometimes the painful things are the things you have to do. What can you do to make it less painful? Well, maybe you can talk to your friends about it first. Maybe you can find a better way to talk about it. Maybe you can hug a pillow at the same time. There's a lot of different things that are like surprisingly helpful to people in circumstances like this. They just don't think of options because they're like, that would be weird, or like who does that kind of thing while doing this? But like it actually is like surprisingly helpful to like have friends around when doing your taxes. Doesn't really make sense why being with friends to do your taxes would be helpful. But there's a lot of different things that do. So I'm gonna like just ask you guys now. It's like a question. Why is, I'm happy to hear people say this is not the case with them. Why is it often easier to do things when others are around? Does anyone have any like of their own models besides the things I wrote and probably should have like blocked off before people answered? Yeah, in the back.
Need to conform.
Need to conform, yes, that's social pressure. Good peer pressure for the positive, sure. Anything else? You can socialize, yeah. Socializing helps things go better and like it's just more fun, so it's less of a pain to do these things. It's also interesting to note that like a lot of the times when you are having a social experience, there's some level of like safety kind of implicitly about doing things in a social experience. Like going to unpleasant meetings or doctor's appointments or things like that. Like you could talk to them about it afterward. They could reassure you about it beforehand. Just like you feel safer maybe with people who like you care about you and you care about. Yep. Yeah, like when you actually talk to people out loud and use words to like put your thoughts into something legible, like you start to notice the things more clearly, what you want and like what and why you want them and like what you expect to happen. This is why the process of like thinking through the outcome of the thing you're going to do can be so helpful to people, is because it actually makes them like meditate on the positive outcomes of what's going to happen, and also like minimize the negatives. Like you can think that something is going to happen in some like intrinsic experiential way, but then once you actually like think it through and you're like, okay, turns out it's probably really unlikely that I'm going to get like choked when I go to this thing. Because like, my brother or whatever is like going to be angry at me, but they're not going to physically attack me probably. So like that fear is there, but it's like not likely. So it's like this, like just like recognizing this out loud when you talk to someone can actually help you, your system like update in the direction that this is like less likely a fear. Yep. Yeah, you get social reinforcement if you do it right. This is like the positive side of like peer pressure or social pressure or whatever, is like it actually feels quite good when other people are like proud of us for doing things and like feel good about us for doing things. Yep.
If you're thinking about something, if you're learning it, then you have an opportunity to
Oh yeah. I mean, study groups for a lot of people are just way easier than learning on their own, like studying on their own. Even if all of you are like equally clueless about the thing, like being able to do the back and forth and teach each other and stuff like that can be very helpful. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and this is more explicitly like if a group of people are working on a problem together, as opposed to even just being around you, right? Like especially if you're all working on it together, then it definitely makes sense to have like the extra help from other people around. Yeah, so like there's a lot of different things that like you wouldn't normally think of as executive functioning help, but like they help because when we go back to this list of things, it's kind of unrealistic to expect yourself to be able to do all of these things all the time for every task. You know, there's like an alternate ideal you that maybe like you have this like fantasy of yourself as being this person who can just like do everything perfectly on your own all the time, plausibly. And then like it turns out reality isn't that easy or simple. And then like one of the things that helps is other people. One of the things that helps is like noticing what's good and bad about the thing that you want to do. One of the things is noticing that like sometimes you want to do things not because you actually want to do them, but because other people make you feel like you want to do them. So when we go back to like, what does it actually look like to have executive function procedurally? It's like not just figuring out how to do the thing you want to do. It's like a broadly philosophical question about what you should be doing in the first place, and why you feel like you should be doing it, and why you feel like you should be doing it alone, and why you feel like you should be doing it right now, and all these different things that are really important. Any questions so far? Cool. I might be slightly blinded, so if someone has a hand up, like wave it around. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, what was the meta level that you mentioned? Yeah. There's definitely a way to like be too, I want to talk about free-morteming and Murphy Jitsu now, but I don't know how many people know what that is. So there's this level of like, what amount of effort you're putting into figuring out how to do a thing is probably to some degree should be tied to like how important the thing is, right? Such that like wanting to go around the corner and get some milk is like lower likelihood of needing to like debug what's going wrong there versus like something like going to work, like why you're having trouble going to work to pay your bills or something. But like at the same time, if you're having trouble figuring out, like if you're having trouble even going around the corner to get some milk, like this might actually reveal something really interesting on the meta level of like why that's hard for you. So like the getting stuck on the meta level problem feels like it's usually the result of kind of going back to this question of like, what does it mean to fail to act on a desire? It's like you have to kind of know what you want before to not get stuck on the meta level. And if you are stuck on the meta level, it's probably because like what you want is like a hard question to answer. And like in that case, it's probably really important to figure that out on the meta level first before you start figuring out how to like do the things that you feel like you should want. You know, it's not really an answer because then it's like, okay, well, how do you figure out what you actually want? That's a different talk from this one. But yeah, turns out it's actually quite important to doing things. And like, you don't have to figure this out necessarily. You can find hacks and like coerce yourself into doing things. But like, one of the things that's interesting about that is that if you just coerce yourself into doing everything in life, that's just the way that you do things, is like self-coercion. Whereas if you figure out what you actually want and how to do it without self-coercion, just like once, in general, like you just don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to self-coerce yourself. Yeah. Let's talk a little about working memory and organization. This is kind of obvious answers to this one. This is like this thing of like external memory, as was kind of mentioned before, using notes, taking notes, making sure you have good like structural planning. These are the usual things that like, unless you have like strong ADHD or something, people like have some idea at least of how to solve. Impulse control is an interesting one because it has to do with the self-monitoring and emotional control steps too. But emotional control in this sense is like just recognizing competing desires. I would consider myself to be someone who, for lack of a better phrase, doesn't really feel a lot of conflict internally. And usually this is because all of my different parts in the internal family systems lingo, all my different internal parts kind of are on the same team. They recognize that like even if we have competing desires sometimes, and there's different things that we want that like we can't all have all at the same time, one of us is going to get what we want more than the others, and like we're all in this together, and we don't like fight over it. We just kind of like figure out what's the best thing to do and how to help figure that out. Emotional control in the sense to me just means something like emotional understanding. Like, do you actually know what your emotions are for, such that you don't demonize them, exile them, shun them, whatever the phrase you want to use from whatever different philosophy or system is. And again, that's a whole different talk also, but it's rather important to figure out because when you are trying to do something and you're having trouble doing it and it's like out of shame or out of guilt or out of like self-negative feelings of any kind, it kind of is hard to actually understand why you want to do the thing. It's kind of hard to actually get your parts aligned and like actually do the thing joyfully. which is kind of important. But you can also set up blocks, like simple things, just like, website blockers on Reddit, so that you don't your alt tab to Reddit doesn't work as quickly. It gives you like an extra 5 seconds to think, okay, do I actually want to go to Reddit? No, I'm going to go back to the thing. There's also cheat codes, and I call them cheat codes because I don't really understand why these things work. I have theories, but they don't really seem to work on any quote-unquote rational level. I think there is actually rational reasons why they work. We just don't really understand them very well. So the first one is music. That's supposed to be someone listening to music and looking very happy on the top left. So music is interesting because it just kind of very easily accesses a different emotional state for us. I don't know if you've ever had this experience of being able to wake up to a certain song versus another song is a very different morning experience. Different people play different kinds of music for working, whether it's intellectual work or physical work. If you're exercising, music is a huge boon for being in the mood to exercise and enjoy your exercise versus not. There's a lot of different things that music does that seems to be evoking different memories for people or different emotional states that they've experienced before. But other times it's actually seems to just access a different version of you, a different emotional stage of you, such that you can feel more energized to do a thing that earlier didn't feel as good or felt more less motivating or something. The second picture is meant to represent context / ambiance or something. There's this thing of there was someone who had trouble writing in their journal every day, and they were beating themselves up over it. And I was look, I don't think you should have to feel like you should have to write in your journal every day. But if you're feeling like you can't write in your journal every day because there's something about the act of writing in your journal that doesn't feel good or interesting to you, what if you try just putting on a bathrobe and lighting a candle and writing on on a paper and with a pen instead of using your phone? And something about this actually just helped them actually write in their journal every day, because something about the context of doing it in that way felt different to them than the standard, more efficient setup of using their laptop. Yeah, there's different things like this. Clothing can make a big difference in how people feel. We tend to put clothing on sometimes to feel a certain way, and you can do this with the things that you want to do sometimes too. You can feel more prepared for something. You can feel like something's more casual or more relaxed when you put the right clothing on. The third picture is the glasses. Frames are super powerful, probably the most powerful psychotechnology out there. I need to write up more about this, but that's my claim. Strong claim, lightly held, is that frames are the most powerful psychotechnology. The way you approach something, the way you think about something can just massively change the way you do it, or what it is like to do it, what the actual process of doing it feels like. One of the examples of this would be if you notice yourself doing something for other people. Sometimes, for some people, this is energizing. If you feel like you're doing it for other people, it feels not energizing, it feels bad. And who you're doing it for can make a big difference, right? Some people are very happy to do something for a friend, but not happy to do it for a stranger, happy to do it for a loved one, but not happy to do it for a friend, happy to do it for their spouse, but not happy to do it for a loved one. There's something about the context that actually matters to them. But the frame can be independent of the context, right? Your frame on something can just be about whether or not you consider something to be useful to you or not. Or it can be about whether or not you think of something as about growth or not. So people who play video games sometimes get really angry at the video game when they fail, because it's they feel like it's a reflection on them, that they weren't good enough. Other people who play video games treat failure in the video game as just part of the game. They just recognize that failure is part of the game. That's exciting and interesting. The idea that you might fail at something, but you can learn from the failure is very helpful to some people for overcoming anxiety about doing things. Obviously, if the failure comes with costs, people don't want to pay costs. That's just the way the world works sometimes. But if you recognize that you can learn from failure, this tends to help people quite a lot with trying things out that might be scary. So frames on executive function that people find very helpful often tend to be things what is it exactly that you're doing this for that makes you feel like you have to do it right now as opposed to another time? I don't recommend people do this kind of thing necessarily, but one example from my own life was I was doing client notes one night and I was very tired and I didn't want to do the client notes, paperwork for insurance and stuff. And I was just sitting there I'm really tired, I kind of want to just play some video games and go to bed. And on one level, I knew that doing the work was important to my clients, And on the other level, it just didn't matter to me that this was important because it didn't feel important. It just felt like busy work that the insurance companies needed. And I thought to myself, like, okay, but like, if like, a 4-star general just like kicked down the door right now and was like, what are you doing? Those logistic reports that you were working on need to be done by tomorrow, or the alien invasion is going to go terribly for us, and all the soldiers are going to die because they won't have the supplies that they need. Right? There's no way that I'm just going to be like, I'm tired, I want to play video games. Because that context would just be completely different about like how emotionally important it would be to me to get that work done. And like noticing that frame difference in that moment when I had that thought, recognized like, yes, there is actually a way that I'm approaching this that is not connected to the thing that I need to do is not for the insurance companies, quote unquote, it's for my clients, because my clients need me to do this work in order to keep doing work with them. And like recognizing that that frame actually made the paperwork I was doing helpful to my clients instead of busy work for the insurance companies, both of which are true to some degree, right? It's like important to recognize that the frame of like, this is busy work for the insurance companies is less motivating than this is the work my clients need me to do as part of the care for them. The fourth one is gamification. Yeah, bars go up, numbers go up, and humans are happy. That seems to be a thing for a lot of people. There's all sorts of apps and things that like will like track your daily tasks and like the things that you want to do, and like reward you with bleeps and bloops and numbers and colors and things like this when you do them. A lot of this is like Skinner boxing, which is I think is pretty bad, but it does seem to work. Seems worth noting that it works for some people and not in a bad way. If it works for you not in a bad way, then great. Yeah, I don't mean to imply that it's like fundamentally evil or something. I just mean that like it probably will have bad effects sometimes, and you should be aware of those bad effects sometimes. But it does seem to work for some people without negative effects many times too. So worth using if you want to try it. Other questions so far? Yep. Oh yeah.
Can you recommend some gamification apps and say more about the negative effects?
Embarrassingly, I cannot recommend any of them because I don't use them and I've forgotten all the names. But it shouldn't be too hard to find. I'm sure actually many people in this room probably have used any. Does anyone want to shout one out that you've used that you found useful? What was that? Duolingo. Okay. Any others? Oh, I'm surprised. I actually expected more people to be using them. Yep. In the back?
This is the gamification app, but FocusMate is really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
At the social aspect, there's an EA group on FocusMate, and I use it every day for this purpose.
Yep. Yeah, it's like it's gamification in the sense that like you list the task, and then like you get the sense of reward for having done it with each other, right? Yeah. So negative side effects. Yeah, I don't want to speak too confidently on this because I don't. Okay. The thing that I have noticed is that sometimes people get the reward from the numbers going up, and they realize eventually that the numbers going up, or like the little bleep and bloop, is like not actually reinforcing a thing that they actually want. It's like replacing. So back when I said that, what does it mean to fail to act on a desire? Like, what does it mean to actually want to do the thing, right? Like understanding what you want and whether you want to do it at all, rather than whether you want to have it done or whether you want to be the kind of person that does it. I think the bleeps and bloops and the colors and the numbers going up are a way to hack our system of what we actually want and give us a placebo, not placebo, what's the word? Proxy, thank you. Yeah, it's like pica. It's like it's like eating dirt instead of getting iron. It's like you're getting something out of it that's going to help you do the thing that you want to do. But like whether you actually want to do the thing is like it's like shortcutting that process so that you might end up regretting that you spent so much time doing the thing. And this is really easy to see in things like MMOs. MMORPGs are a type of video game that kind of rely on a business model of keeping player engagement past any sensible point. And so they use lots of like bars and numbers and like little rewards daily every time you log in, and like little quests that you have to do every day, and like these kinds of things like can keep people from recognizing that they're not actually having fun in the game anymore. They're just doing it because little bits of serotonin or dopamine or whatever are released in their brain when they see the number go up. So that's my warning about using gamification. Like again, like for some people it can just be really valuable and be good. I don't think it's fundamentally bad or evil or harmful. I just want people to be aware of that potential failure.
We're at 7:10 right now, so transition into Q&A.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. The final note that I want to give on this was that the process of understanding each of these parts and like what is the best thing to do for them is still rather ongoing for a lot of people. There is great research on this that I am happy to share on some more easily shareable process, which I probably should have looked up ahead of time, but I'll just give you the name right now so you can like look it up yourself if you'd like to. There's like different forms of, one second. There's different forms of like understanding even these like different steps, right? So like some people divide them up by parts of the brain, and yeah, so Dr. Russell Barkley, B-A-R-K-L-E-Y, has a great webinar session online for executive functioning ADHD. He has a lot of his own tips and stuff, which I'm actually happy to go over real quick. But he breaks them up into different parts of the brain. So there's like response suppression, there's motor coordination and timing, there's emotional dysfunction, and this is based on like the frontal striatal circuit, the frontal cerebellar circuit, and the frontal limbic circuit of the brain. And like these are different frames on like the same kinds of processes going on in the brain and how to best approach them. So he recommends things like drinking sugary drinks because actually it turns out that like your mental energy is quite important for keeping executive function. He recommends taking 10-minute breaks between tasks because if you try to like chain from one task to another, you're more likely to get exhausted quickly and not realize it. He also recommends visualizing future benefits. Like actually try this. It's really weird that this works as well as it does, but like it's quite important. Yeah, there's a lot of different. Like what I want to say is like there's a lot of different ways to like view executive function, and I don't want you to come away from this talk thinking like, oh, this is the one true way to understand it. This is the way that I've been researching it and like getting promising results and understanding it myself. This is the thing that I've been writing on. I'm going to continue to write on it. I've made some posts on the EA forums on this. I'm going to continue to. It's probably so far what I would consider to be like 1/3 of the major puzzle overall, and that's maybe daunting because like this seems like a lot already. But like I said, understanding what you want is actually really important for executive function, and that's a whole different talk. And also, emotional control, quote unquote, is like really important for this, and that's a whole different talk. So yeah, that's what I've got so far. Hopefully it's helpful to you guys. Happy to answer some questions now.
Hello. I guess you mentioned gamification and I guess finding out what you want, I guess. And so my question was, I myself tend to find that when I set like my own goals or like my own like games, I guess, where I try to like make a measure, raise it for myself, it's like I don't take it as seriously when, or as like, I don't take it as seriously as when like it's from someone else, like someone else has created this metric, or I don't know, some company or game. And I guess why is that? And yeah. Yeah, my expectation is that some part of you knows that you're being tricked. Like there's some part of you that recognizes that the artificial measurement or the artificial reinforcement is like not actually speaking to what you really want. It's a really deep question, like what we want and why. And there's a great post about, or a talk that Duncan Sabian has made about like noticing what you want, like what are you doing right now and why are you doing it is like a really important thing to check in with yourself every so often. It can be really uncomfortable for people who like are not aligned with what they want and understand what they want, but like it's actually really valuable to do that kind of thing. And like if you notice that like external gamification or external like reinforcement doesn't matter to you as much as it seems to matter to other people, it's probably because like there's a part of you that recognizes more quickly that like the thing that you're being reinforced on or gamified on or something like doesn't actually align with what you really want. That's my guess. Yep.
You mentioned that there are. Thank you for the talk, by the way.
no
Very
problem.
interesting. You mentioned that there are, like these steps, like there will be weaknesses for different problems, for different steps, for different tasks and projects. Do you know whether some people are, on average, much better at a specific step or something like that? Like, have you found like some people who are very impressive, let's say, on the organization side of things, and
Oh, man.
have you actually like already detected, like, let's say, the best practices from these people, or is it just like innate versus?
Yeah, this is really weird. Like, there are some people who just like, they are like machines. Like, they literally will just like they're like writers are one of the easiest people to point to like this. Like Stephen King, Brandon Sanderson, my podcast co-host Alexander Wales. Like these people, like they can write like tens of thousands of words per week sometimes. And that's just like ridiculous. Like Scott Alexander also has mentioned that he just like feels like he has to write, and like his output is crazy sometimes. And like there's a thing about their executive function process clearly that is different from most people who write. And I say this because most people who write, myself included, that kind of output is just like unthinkable to us. Like even people who like myself can write 10,000, 15,000 words a month sometimes would struggle to do that consistently every week, which is what they're doing. Yeah, and like the kind of writing is also interesting because like I can write 10 to 15,000 words of fiction per month, maybe like 3,000 words, 4,000 words of nonfiction, and then like 5,000 to 10,000 to 20,000 extra words of fiction in a specific type of fiction writing, which is like role play basically, but not in like the long form prose fiction that I usually do. And like, why is it harder to do one than the other is like a whole different sense of question. And this is not just for writing. This can be for administrative work. Some people seem to be fine with doing bureaucratic work. Like doing taxes to them is just like, yeah, whatever, it's tax time. I'm just gonna do my taxes and then it's done. And then for other people, it's like the most annoying, frustrating thing they could ever possibly do. And it's like really, really strange and interesting to me why this happens for different people in different ways. We have these labels. I should just, quick tangent. Diagnoses are just labels. They're just words that we slap on things, right? So like when we see like a cluster of behaviors, psychologists and doctors at some point are like, hey, we see these symptoms. Sometimes these symptoms seem to be related like in a correlated sense. We don't know if it's in a causal sense, but let's just like draw a circle around these particular symptoms or behaviors and slap a label on it. That's all a diagnosis is. It's like, if you look in the DSM for psychological diagnoses, it's like these behaviors at this frequency in this context. That's all the diagnoses are. So ADHD is a diagnosis that seems to target like specific dysfunction for these specific parts, and noticing which ones of them are going wrong. Like there's specific things that seem to be helpful to people with ADHD because these specific dysfunctional things are like grouped in their dysfunction. But also it turns out like just taking Adderall or some other medication or something can actually just like really help with this thing. So like the idea that it's all about just figuring it out on like a willpower level or something like that just seems wrong. Or maybe not wrong, but like a simplification, because it's like there's something biochemical happening too. And I suspect this is the same for all of these. The planning prioritization step is interesting because prioritizing is about wants and like recognizing what you want and actually making the plan. Why do some people have an easier time understanding what they want than others? Trauma, different upbringings, different genetics, I have no idea. It just seems to be the case that some people have an easier time recognizing what they want than other people do, and like their wants are like less competing or less complex or something like this. Why is task initiation easier for some people? Like maybe some people just have an easier time visually imagining positive things happening. And this can be a result of depression for some people. Like depressed people can have a harder time imagining positive things happening, so it's harder for them to initiate tasks. This is part of the reason why depression has an executive dysfunction component to it too. Does that answer your question mostly? Yeah. Yeah. So for some people, it's going to be different tasks even. Right? Like they can be really good at some things, but bad at other things, and then other people seem to be fine with everything. Yeah.
Before we move on to other questions, just in order to let's transition into office hours out in the foyer right now. So if anyone wants to stick around, more, ask questions, whatever, right out there, right now. Yeah.